In the busy heart of Lagos, behind the noise of yellow buses and loud traders, there lived a woman named Bisi. She wasn't loud or flashy. She didn't talk too much, but deep inside her was something strong, a quiet fire. To most people in her area, Bisi was just a pepper seller. She sold foodstuff in a small kiosk, always smiling politely. People greeted her and moved on. But what they didn't know was that Bisi carried a big story inside her. A story full of pain, struggle, and strength. Bisi grew up in Offa, a small town far from Lagos. Life was hard. Her father died when she was still in school, and her mother had to work as a cleaner to feed the family. One day, her mother told her, "If you find a man that has small money and a good heart, marry him. It's better to suffer with someone than to suffer alone." So, when Bisi met Femi, a young man with sweet words and big dreams, she believed him. Femi wasn't rich, but he made her laugh. He told her, "One day, I'll be a big man in this Lagos." They got married and moved into one small room in Mushin. The mattress was flat. The fan made noise. Some days, there was no food in the house. One night, Femi said, "Let's boil water and drink it like tea. We'll sleep, and tomorrow will be better." Bisi didn't cry. She just looked at the pot and said in her heart, "One day I'll boil soup, not just water." She started selling groundnuts, then zobo, then pepper. Every little money she made, she saved small. She was not lazy at all. She woke up early and slept late. She worked hard, not only for herself, but for the children that came, Fola, Kemi, and Ao. Femi, on the other hand, kept chasing contracts. Every week, it was one promise or the other. "I just need 20,000 naira. Once I get this deal, we are made," he would say. But the deal never came. Bisi didn't argue. She kept working. One day, she had an idea. What if women in her area could come together and save money as a group? That's how she started the Women's Growth Circle. It began with just 6 women. Each person brought 1,000 naira or more than every week. One woman would collect the money each week and use it for her needs. Bisi was different. She kept records. She wrote names, dates, and amounts in her small notebook. If someone couldn't pay, she would visit them and talk kindly. She never shouted, "We are building something together," she always said. More women joined. 10, then 20, then 50. They trusted Bisi because she was honest. She didn't cheat. She helped when someone had a problem. She even gave small loans with little interest. Still, she continued selling pepper like nothing big was happening. Even her husband didn't know. Why? Because anytime Bisi gave Femi money from her own pocket, he never returned it. But when she told him the money came from the cooperative, he would act serious. He would even try to pay it back with interest. So Bisi lied. Each time Femi needed money for rent, school fees, or one new contract, she would say, "Let me ask the cooperative, but they will collect interest, oh." Femi would shake his head and say, "That group self, always charging people," and Bisi would just smile and go inside. He didn't know that she was the leader of the same group. When she bought a small land in Badagry, she told Femi it was a gift from her uncle. He danced around the room and thanked God. Bisi just watched quietly. Let him be happy. At night, while the house was sleeping, Bisi would sit near the window and count the cooperative money with her small lamp. Her eyes would be tired, but she didn't stop. She remembered the days they drank hot water like tea. She remembered the hunger, and that memory kept her going. In this city called Lagos, not everyone who is quiet is weak. Some women hide their greatness to keep peace in the home, but even quiet fire can burn strong. Bisi's life slowly began to change, one step at a time, one market day after the other. What started as a group of 6 women saving money together had now grown into a full cooperative with rules, records, and real progress. They called it the Women's Growth Circle, and to the members, Bisi was more than just a leader. She was their guide, their peace, and their shield. She was still selling pepper, yes, but now in larger quantities. She supplied to 3 food vendors. She had a freezer. She even got a small generator to keep things running during blackout. Yet, every time she went home, she tied her wrapper like a regular trader. She never showed off. And every time Femi asked her for help, she kept up the story. Let me talk to the cooperative. It's not easy, oh. They won't give money without interest. Femi would sigh and complain. These women SF. No pity. And Bisi would just nod. What could she say? If she told the truth, that she was the owner, the one calling the shots, he might feel small. He might stop trying. Or worse, he might begin to treat her with disrespect. She had seen it before. In her neighborhood, a woman bought a car and her husband slapped her in public, shouting, "Are you now the man of this house?" So Bisi played her role. Quiet wife, loyal wife, supportive wife. But inside her, something was growing stronger. She bought a piece of land in Badagry, small but real, paid for with her own sweat. She started building little by little. 2 rooms at first, then 4. She didn't rush. Block by block, cement by cement. No loan, no help. When she told Femi about it, she said, "One of my late uncle's friends gave me some land. He said my father once helped him when he was young." Femi clapped his hands and said, "God has remembered us." Bisi just smiled. She kept the documents hidden in her wrapper box. But while Bisi was climbing up, Femi's life was moving in circles. Still chasing contracts. Still holding papers. Still wearing his only native wear to go to government offices. He would return home sweaty and tired. Sometimes angry. He would shout at the children for making noise, or at Bisi for cooking late. But she understood. He was frustrated. She didn't fight him. Instead, she cooked his food. She listened. She even helped him print proposals. She knew he was trying, but life wasn't answering him. One Sunday evening, Femi came home with a frown. "That man again. They gave him the job I was promised," he said, "just because his wife is working in the ministry." Bisi looked up from her soup. "Don't worry, God's time is best." He didn't reply. As the days passed, Femi started borrowing more. 10,000 naira here, 30,000 naira there, sometimes 50,000 naira. Bisi gave him every kobo from the cooperative's account. But she made it look like she was just helping him borrow it. "I had to beg the women," she would say. "They were not happy about it." Femi would shake his head and say, "Let me quickly finish this contract. I'll return everything." He never did. Yet Bisi continued helping. Not because she was foolish, but because she still loved him. She just didn't trust him with power. Bisi's children started noticing the changes too. Their school fees were paid on time. They started eating meat more often. One day, Kemi asked her mother, "Mummy, are you working in a bank now?" Bisi laughed and said, "No, my dear. I just plan better now." But even children can feel when something is different. Meanwhile, Bisi's cooperative had grown to over 100 women. Tailors, food sellers, hairdressers, cleaners. They all trusted Bisi with their savings. They met every Saturday in a small hall behind a church building. They wore matching ankara sometimes. They called her Madam Chair Lady. She would give opening prayers, call out names, collect payments, announce loans, and encourage them. "We are not just saving money. We are saving our future." The women loved her. But still, Bisi kept it a secret from Femi. He thought she was just a strong trader with good friends. She was more than that. She had become a provider, a protector, a silent light in many homes. But Femi didn't know. And soon, something small, just a simple joke, would open the door to a big storm. She carried her husband, her children, and the burdens of many women, all without asking for praise. But even strong shoulders get tired, and the truth doesn't stay hidden forever. The building in Badagry was finally finished. It wasn't big or fancy, but it was hers, 4 rooms, 2 toilets, a small kitchen, and a little space at the back for planting vegetables. Painted soft yellow with brown windows, it stood quietly on the street like Bisi herself, not loud, but strong. She didn't use a builder from outside. She hired someone through her cooperative, a member's husband. She trusted them, and she made sure every payment went through her records. No loan, no help from Femi, just years of saving, planning, and silent hard work. She didn't even tell him the project was finished until the keys were in her hand. That evening, as he sat watching football on the old television in their rented apartment, she came in, dropped the keys on the table, and said, "I think we can move into our own house next week." Femi looked up, confused. "Our house?" he asked. Bisi nodded. "Yes, the land in Badagry. It's now a complete house." Femi jumped up. "What? The one your uncle gave you?" "Yes. You finished it." Bisi smiled, keeping her voice soft. "I just managed it slowly, block by block." Femi shouted with joy. He hugged her tightly. "Ah, my wife. You are too much. This is the beginning of our breakthrough." He went outside to tell the neighbors. He even bought suya that night to celebrate. Bisi just watched. Not once did she say, "It's not from my uncle. It's from the cooperative. From my sweat, my hands, my nights." She let him have his joy. That weekend, they moved in. It was the first time in years that Bisi slept without hearing the noise of generators from 5 different houses. The air was quiet, peaceful. Even the children noticed the difference. "Mummy, this place smells like village, but sweet," little Ao said. They all laughed. For a short time, things felt better. Femi stopped complaining. He smiled more. He even tried helping around the house. And because of the new environment, he started inviting friends again, always telling them how his late uncle had remembered him through his wife. "When God says yes," he told them, "even old uncles will bring you keys." Bisi sat in the kitchen one afternoon, peeling yam, when her friend Mama Dunny, who was also a cooperative member, came to visit. "Chair lady, ah, your new house is fine-o," she said, looking around. "Shoo," Bisi whispered quickly, looking toward the window. "Don't call me that here." "Ah, sorry. I forgot." Mama Dunny laughed. "You've turned yourself to undercover chair lady." They laughed. But deep inside, Bisi knew this lie was getting heavier. Still, she kept it going. The women's growth circle was still growing. They had moved their weekly meetings to a rented event hall now. There were even plans to register officially with the local government. They had enough savings to start giving out business support loans. They had helped 2 women open shops. One woman pay for a child's university fees, and another start a frozen food business. And yet, Femi still didn't know. He still thought his wife was just lucky. One afternoon, he came home looking very tired. "Bisi, I need 100,000 naira urgently," he said. "There's one contract opening next week. If I don't pay the processing fee, they'll give it to someone else." She didn't even ask questions. She already knew he wouldn't return the money, but she acted like it was a big deal. "That's a lot. Let me ask the cooperative. But you'll pay interest." He groaned. "Every time interest. They can't help me as their in-law." Bisi forced a smile. "Business is business. They'll ask for their money." That night, she removed the money from the group account and gave it to him the next day with a typed loan agreement. He signed it, thinking it was from someone else. She knew he wouldn't pay, but that was her burden to carry. She had built more than a house. She had built a wall, one that protected her husband's pride and hid her own truth. But walls don't last forever, and lies, even quiet ones, grow heavy. The house in Badagry was standing strong, but so was the secret. Bisi continued to live like everything was normal, like she was just a lucky trader, blessed by her uncle's old friend. But deep inside, she was carrying more than a home. She was carrying a whole world on her back. The women's growth circle had become something big. Over 150 women now came every week. Traders, teachers, widows, hairdressers. All of them trusted Bisi with their money, their tears, and their hope. Each woman brought something. Some brought savings. Some brought business ideas. Some brought children they couldn't feed. And somehow, Bisi found a way to help them all. She gave out loans. She gave advice. She helped resolve fights among members. And slowly, her name started spreading across the community, not just as a pepper seller, but as a helper. But Femi didn't know any of this. To him, she was still his calm, obedient wife who happened to know some generous women. That your group is always saving us, he would say. They are good people. Bisi would nod, but it was her own hands, her own wisdom, her own long nights that were saving them. And Femi kept borrowing, sometimes 10,000 naira for school books, other times 50,000 naira for generator repairs. One time he needed 120,000 naira to rush one quick opportunity in Abuja. Each time, Bisi gave it. And each time, she told him, "It's from the cooperative. You'll have to pay interest." Oh. Femi would sigh, sign the paper she gave him, and say, "No walla, I'll pay them back." But he never did. The group didn't complain, because the money didn't come from the actual cooperative pot. Bisi used her own savings to fill in the gaps. She carried his debts quietly so no woman would ever doubt the circle. But the more he took, the more confident he became. Femi started walking with his shoulders high. He would go to meetings in nice clothes, talking like a man who had things under control. At home, he stopped helping with little things. If the children asked for food money, he would say, "Go and meet your mother. She's the one doing big business now." He thought he was joking, but each word dropped like a stone in Bisi's heart. She kept quiet, until one day, something strange happened. It was a Sunday afternoon. They had just come back from church. The children were in their rooms. Bisi was resting in the kitchen when Femi walked in with a smile. "My love, good news," he said. "I just applied for a new loan." Bisi looked up slowly. "From where?" "From one microfinance bank in Ikorodu. I need just 200,000 naira to complete it." She blinked, confused. "But I thought you needed only 60,000 naira last week." Femi laughed. "That one didn't work. These people have better connections. If I don't move fast, I'll lose the chance." Then he reached into his back pocket and brought out a printed document. It had his name and a reference name. He pointed and said, "They said I need someone with business reputation to sign. I told them my wife belongs to one strong cooperative group, that you can help me." Bisi stared at the paper. He wanted her to use her real name, her real reputation, the same name she had been hiding from him. "You're sure you want me to sign?" she asked quietly. "Yes, now. I told them you're a respected member. They said your name is well known. You don't know you're popular." Her hands shook as she held the document, so people were now calling her name in public. And Femi had no idea she was more than just a member. She was the one sitting at the head of the table. "Let me think about it," she said softly. That night, she couldn't sleep. For the first time, she began to wonder if this secret had gone too far. If the truth ever came out the wrong way, would he be able to take it? But still, she didn't tell him. She returned the paper and signed the next day, and said the group refused. Femi was angry. He shouted for hours, said she didn't support him, that other wives helped their husbands without argument. She didn't reply. Instead, she sat outside with her children and told Ao to bring her notebook. It was time to balance the circle's accounts again. Some men borrow money and think they are borrowing pride. But pride does not belong to money, it belongs to truth. And one day, the truth will ask for its change. Lagos was hot that Saturday afternoon. The kind of heat that made clothes stick to your skin and tempers rise without warning. But Bisi didn't mind. She had just returned from the Women's Growth Circle's monthly leadership meeting, where new women were voted in to help manage loans and records. Things were moving well. The group was about to open its first mini office, a small two-room space in Iana Era. Some people in the community had started calling it a women's bank, though it was still just a cooperative. Bisi was proud, quietly, deeply proud. But back home, something else was brewing. Femi had been invited to a birthday party. His old friend's daughter was turning 10. He told Bisi to dress nicely and follow him. She agreed. She wore a clean Ankara gown. Nothing flashy. Femi, as usual, put on his best native wear, the one he saved for important outings. They took a kiki to the party together. It was a small event in a compound. Chairs, music, jollof rice, drinks, and children running around. Femi moved from table to table, greeting people like a king. "This one I brought my wife today. You people must believe I'm still a responsible man, oh." He joked, and everyone laughed. Bisi smiled politely, sitting under the canopy with the women. After a while, a familiar voice shouted, "Ah, Madam Bisi, see you here." It was Ngozi, one of her closest friends in the cooperative. Loud, free, and always laughing. She came over and hugged Bisi, then turned to Femi. "You're the lucky husband now. Ah, so you're the famous Femi we always hear about in the cooperative." Femi blinked. "Me?" he asked. Ngozi laughed harder. "Yes now. The one that's always collecting loan with interest from our chairlady. The one we call Borrower General." Everyone at the table laughed. Femi's smile dropped. "I collect loan?" he asked. Bisi's heart stopped. She quickly tapped Ngozi's hand, trying to laugh it off. "Ngozi, leave this man alone, Jerry. He'll think you're serious." But Ngozi didn't get the message. "Ah, but I'm serious. Your husband doesn't know you're the founder and chairlady of the Women's Growth Circle." Silence. Femi stood up slowly, his face tight. "What did you just say?" Bisi stood too, reaching for his arm. "Let's go, please. It's too hot here." Femi didn't say a word. He just walked away from the crowd. They went home without speaking. That night, the children ate quietly in the sitting room while the parents sat in silence. The tension in the air was heavy. Later, when the children were asleep, Femi spoke. His voice was low, calm, but dangerous. "So all this while, you've been lying to me." Bisi looked at him. Her heart was shaking, but her voice was steady. "I wasn't lying. I was protecting our peace." "Protecting what?" he snapped. "You let me walk around like a beggar, borrowing money from you without knowing you were the one running everything?" "If I told you, would you have taken it well?" she asked. He jumped to his feet. "I'm your husband. You're supposed to tell me everything. And you're supposed to return what you borrow," she replied softly. "But you never did. I carried your debt, your pride, your pain, and I did it all quietly." His hands were shaking now. He pointed at her. "You think you're better than me because you make money now. You think you're the man of the house." Tears filled her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. "I never tried to take your place. I just wanted to help us survive." "You're a liar, Bisi," he said. "And you are ungrateful," she said, finally letting the truth cut through the air. He turned and walked out of the room. That night, Bisi lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Her body felt heavy, not from fear, but from pain, from years of holding everything inside. The next morning, Femi didn't go to church. He didn't speak to her. That evening, he told the children he would be staying with a friend for a while. "Your mother is now the head of the house. Let her continue," he muttered as he packed his bag. Ao, their youngest, asked, "Daddy, are you fighting with Mommy?" He forced a smile. "No, just small break." But Bisi knew. This was not just a small break. This was the beginning of something big. And deep down, something in her broke too. A joke may be small, but truth hidden for too long can explode like thunder. She carried his pride, but when it cracked, the weight of her silence became her crime. The house was no longer a home. Since that day at the party, everything had changed. Femi didn't come home for 2 days. Bisi told the children he had traveled for work. They didn't ask too many questions, but they noticed her silence. Her voice was softer, her face tired. Even the air in the house felt different. When Femi finally returned, he didn't come with smiles or greetings. He walked straight into the bedroom, dropped his bag, and said only 4 words. "We need to talk." Bisi sat up from the chair in the living room. She followed him in. He stood by the window, looking out at the street like he was searching for something far away. "Do you know what I feel?" he said quietly. "Like I've been living in a house where everybody knew the truth but me." Bisi stood near the door. "That was never my plan." "So why did you hide it?" he asked, turning around. His eyes were red, not just from anger, but from shame. "Because I didn't want to lose you," she replied. "Every time I helped you with money from me, you didn't return it. But when I made it feel like it came from somewhere else, you respected it. You respected me. So you pretended I was borrowing from strangers just to protect my ego." She nodded. "Yes." There was a long silence. Then he laughed. But it wasn't joy. It was pain. "You made me look like a fool, Bisi. In front of my friends. In front of your group. In front of the whole world." She took a step forward. "No one laughed at you. No one even knew." "But you knew," he snapped. "You watched me beg for money I thought was not yours. You sat there, playing chairlady at meetings, then came home and served me food like nothing happened." "Because I was trying to keep our marriage together," she said. He picked up a chair and slammed it down. The children ran from their rooms, frightened. "Go back," he shouted. They stood frozen. Bisi turned to them. "It's okay. Go back inside," she said gently. They left, but the fear stayed in their eyes. Femi walked around the room, breathing heavily. "I want a meeting. Family, pastor, imam, everybody. This is not just between us anymore." Bisi nodded slowly. "Call whoever you want. I'm not afraid of the truth anymore." By the weekend, the sitting room was full. Femi's brothers, Bisi's aunt, their pastor, and even an alpha from the nearby mosque came. Two of the cooperative women also sat quietly at the back. They had begged to come and explain Bisi's side. Femi spoke first. He poured out his anger. He said Bisi had embarrassed him, lied to him, made him look weak. He said, "I thought I was the head of my home, but I was just a tenant in my wife's kingdom." Some nodded. Some looked uncomfortable. Then Bisi spoke. Her voice was soft, but steady. She told them everything. How she started the group, how it grew, how she used her personal savings to cover Femi's debts, how she pretended the money came from other people just to protect his pride, how she built a house, kept their family fed, paid the children's fees, and held everything together. "I didn't hide it because I was proud. I hid it because I was scared. Scared that my own husband would stop loving me if he knew I had become something more than just a wife." Silence filled the room. The pastor cleared his throat. "Bisi, it's not right to hide such a thing. But I understand why you did it. Your husband should be proud, not angry." Femi's eldest brother looked at him. "You're angry that your wife helped you? If she had left you to suffer, would you still be standing here?" The alpha spoke softly. "When a woman covers your shame, she is not your enemy. She is your partner." Femi didn't say a word. His pride was bleeding. But somewhere deep inside, he was also ashamed. The meeting ended with no final decision. The pastor suggested they separate for a few days, to cool down. Everyone agreed. Femi packed his bag and left again. This time, he didn't say goodbye. In every war, there are wounds. Some you can see, some hide in the heart. But the worst ones are the ones you carry silently, with no one to dress them. The house in Betagree was quiet. No music, no football on the TV, no shoes left scattered by the door. Femi had been gone for 2 weeks, and Bisi was beginning to feel the silence in her bones. The children missed their father, but they didn't say much. They could feel something was broken, and children always know, even when no one explains. Bisi tried to keep life moving. She cooked, cleaned, helped with homework. She still attended every cooperative meeting. She still led like nothing had changed. But something had. She no longer laughed as easily. She no longer stayed up counting the group's books with joy. She no longer hummed while peeling yam. Her heart was tired. One evening, after the children had gone to bed, Bisi sat alone at the kitchen table, staring at the plastic chair Femi always sat in. "We were supposed to build this life together," she whispered. "Now I'm just here, patching everything alone." She thought about calling him, just to hear his voice. Just to say sorry, even if she wasn't sure what for anymore. But she didn't. Instead, she wrote in her old savings notebook, the one she had used from the beginning. She wrote one sentence: "A woman is not a thief for growing wings." Femi was staying with his younger cousin in Ikeja. The room was tight and noisy, but it gave him space to think. At first, he told people he just needed a break, that he was re-strategizing. But deep down, he knew that wasn't true. He was hurt, embarrassed, and afraid. Afraid of going back and facing what he had tried to ignore for years. That Bisi had become more than the girl he married in Mushin. She was stronger now, wiser, bigger, and he didn't know where that left him. He looked at his phone every night. Her name sat on his screen like a wound. But pride is a thick wall. It blocks even the softest voice. His cousin, Tunji, tried to talk sense into him. "Guy, make you know you see ghosts scatter your home," he said one night. "She lied to me," Femi replied. "She covered you," Tunji said. "If you were in her shoes, would you have done half of what she did?" Femi didn't answer, because the truth, he wouldn't have. One Friday morning, a surprise message arrived on Bisi's phone. It was from the local government office. "We want to honor you and the Women's Growth Circle for your work in women's empowerment." Bisi stared at the message for minutes. She didn't know whether to cry or smile. Later that evening, during the cooperative meeting, she told the women. They jumped. They clapped. Some cried. "Chair lady, you deserve it. You've changed our lives. We will all follow you there." But deep down, Bisi felt something else. How can I receive honor when my own home is falling apart? That weekend, Bisi went to visit her pastor. Alone. She needed someone to talk to. Someone who wouldn't judge her. She told him everything. The lies. The silence. The sacrifice. The pain. He listened quietly, then said something she never expected. "Sometimes, the one who breaks the home is not the one who walks out. It is the one who refuses to grow." She nodded slowly. "So what do I do now?" she asked. "You stand. If he comes back, let it be because he sees you clearly, not because you bent yourself small again." She wiped her eyes. "But what if he doesn't come back at all?" The pastor looked at her gently. "Then you will still stand. Because you didn't build yourself just for him. You built yourself for life." Two roads lay before her, one with him, one without, and both were hard. But sometimes the strongest choice is to stop apologizing for who you've become. The award day finally came. The sun was gentle that morning, not too hot, not too dull. It felt like the sky itself was showing respect. Bisi stood in front of her small mirror, adjusting the soft green and gold ankara she had picked for the occasion. It wasn't too loud, but it was beautiful like her. Her children stood around her wide-eyed. "Mummy, are you the governor now?" little Ao asked. She smiled. "No, my dear. I'm still your mother. I'm just being honored for doing good work." Fola handed her her purse. Kimmy took a photo with her small phone. They all left together in a hired car. 10 other women from the cooperative followed in 2 small buses. Laughter, music, and excitement filled the air. But inside Bisi's heart, something was missing. Femi was not there. The small local government hall in Lagos Island was full of guests, women's groups, community leaders, market chair ladies, even a few journalists. A large banner hung behind the stage, celebrating women changing lives, local heroes, big impact. When they called her name, people clapped loud. Bisi walked up slowly, not with pride, but with grace. They gave her a certificate, a small plaque, and a short speech to say. She stood behind the microphone, looked at the crowd, and spoke from the heart. "I'm just a woman who got tired of watching other women suffer. We saved 1,000 naira each week, but it wasn't just money we saved. We saved our children, our peace, and our future." She paused. "Everything I did quietly, not because I was afraid, but because sometimes the world doesn't know how to treat a woman who is both strong and gentle." The crowd was silent for a second. Then they clapped. Some wiped tears. Some stood up and clapped louder. She bowed and walked down. But just as she sat, she turned and her heart stopped. Femi was standing at the back of the hall. He looked different. A bit thinner. A bit tired. But he was there. Alone. After the ceremony, he waited outside. Bisi came out with her children and her women. The drums were playing, and people were still dancing. But their eyes met across the noise. He walked toward her slowly. When he got close, he didn't smile. He didn't speak like before. He just said, "I saw the flyer 2 days ago, and I didn't know if I should come." Bisi looked at him, her eyes soft. "But you came," she said. He nodded. "I've been thinking. A lot. About everything." She stayed quiet. "I didn't understand you before. I thought if you grew, it meant I failed. But now I see. Maybe it means we both could have grown. Together." She looked away, blinking fast. "You hurt me, Femi. With your silence. With your anger." "I know," he said. "I let pride win. But watching you today, hearing you speak, I saw something I should have seen long ago." He took a deep breath. "I want to come home. If you'll have me." That night, after the children had gone to bed, Bisi sat on the veranda, sipping water. Femi sat beside her, nervous. "I won't stop you from leading anymore," he said. "I just want to learn how to walk beside you." Bisi turned to him. "You won't treat me like I'm too much. I'll treat you like you're everything." She gave a small smile. Then she said, "There are rules now. No more hiding. No more pretending. You return what you borrow. You carry weight with me, not throw it on me." He nodded. "I understand." They sat there, not saying much after that. Just the sound of night insects and the soft wind around them. For the first time in many months, it felt like peace had found them again. She was the chair lady. Not just of a group, but of her own destiny. And even when shadows came, she stood, until the shadow chose to kneel beside the light. The days that followed Femi's return were soft and slow, like morning dew after a long, dusty harmattan. There were no loud apologies, no grand shows of love, just quiet mornings, shared chores, and a little more honesty in the air. Femi was still learning. He didn't know how to say, "I'm sorry" easily, but he showed it in small ways, by sweeping the front yard without being asked, by helping Ao with his homework, by watching Bisi cook and saying, "Let me wash the pepper." And for Bisi, it wasn't about him changing completely. It was about him finally seeing her fully. One Sunday evening, she called a small gathering at home. Nothing big, just her cooperative leaders and their husbands, a few close friends, her pastor, and even the alpha. She cooked rice and beans with fried plantain. The women brought drinks. Chairs were set up in the compound. Children ran around. The air was warm, filled with laughter and light chatter. But Bisi had a reason for this meeting. When the plates were cleared and everyone had eaten, she stood up slowly. "I want to thank all of you," she began. "Not just for eating my food," people chuckled, "but for standing by me during the storms I didn't always speak about." She looked around the group, her eyes stopping on Femi. He nodded gently. "For years, I led the women's growth circle quietly. I thought I was protecting peace. But I've learned that peace built on silence can break like thin glass." The place went quiet. Today, my husband and I are not just rebuilding our home. We are rebuilding our understanding. She looked at Femi again. "We are learning to walk side by side." There was a soft round of clapping, not loud, not forced. Just honest hands celebrating honest growth. Then something surprising happened. Femi stood. He cleared his throat. His voice shook slightly, but he spoke anyway. "I was a man who thought leadership belonged only to men, that if my wife rose too high, it meant I was falling." He paused. "But I've seen now, a woman's success doesn't make a man smaller. It gives him wings, if he's not too proud to fly with her." A few people gasped quietly. Some nodded. Others just stared, surprised by his honesty. "I won't pretend I didn't make mistakes," he said. I did. But I'm here now. And I'm willing to learn. Bisi smiled softly. Ngozi whispered to someone beside her. See our borrower general, turning philosopher. Oh. They chuckled. But it wasn't mockery. It was love. The kind that had survived fire. After the gathering, Bisi and Femi sat under the stars. The children were already asleep. The street was quiet. Just the soft sound of crickets and far-off generators humming. You spoke well today, Bisi said, sipping water from a steel cup. I was afraid, he replied, but not of talking, of being truly seen. You've always been seen, she said. You just didn't believe you were enough. He turned to her. And you? Do you still believe I'm enough? She thought for a moment, not because of what you say, but because you showed up today and stayed. He reached for her hand. They didn't need many words after that, because healing doesn't always shout. Sometimes, it just sits quietly at the table, holding your hand, eating rice and beans, and promising not to walk away again. Forgiveness is not forgetting. It is remembering, and choosing to love anyway. And sometimes, the table where we eat becomes the altar where healing begins. Life, after all the noise, returned to something like balance. The house in Betagri didn't feel heavy anymore. The air felt lighter, even when the breeze was still. Laughter slowly returned, not every day, but enough to remind everyone that peace had come to stay. Femi kept his promise. He didn't just sit in the background anymore. He began asking questions about the cooperative. Sometimes, he helped Bisi carry files to her meetings. Other times, he simply sat beside her, listening as she talked through loans and savings. One day, he asked, "Come in, join." Bisi laughed. "Start your own. You'll see it's not as easy as it looks." They laughed together, but it was no longer the laughter of pretending. It was the laughter of two people who had crossed fire and were still standing. The Women's Growth Circle now had over 200 active members. They had opened another branch in Ikorodu and were planning to expand into Abeokuta. Bisi had been invited to speak at a national women's forum in Abuja, all expenses paid. When she told Femi, he said, "Do you need me to iron your dress?" And he meant it. The children were growing too. Kemi had started helping Bisi with small cooperative tasks. Hayer no longer asked if they were poor or rich. He just knew they were okay, and they were together. One evening, as Bisi sat under the mango tree in front of the house, Mama Dunny stopped by with a bag of garden eggs. "You're now our celebrity," she teased. "You wear lace, but your roots are deeper than iron." Bisi smiled. "The lace is just cloth. The roots, that's where the real story is." Let us not forget, Bisi was not born a leader. She became one, through pain, through patience, and through prayer. She learned that silence is not always peace, and that sometimes the strongest thing a woman can do is speak the truth, even when her voice shakes. She didn't fight her husband with fire. She didn't shout or curse or destroy. She stood. She carried. She protected. And when the storm passed, she welcomed peace. But this time, on her own terms. And Femi? He didn't become perfect. He didn't suddenly become a new man. But he became a better one. And that, sometimes, is all that's needed. So if you ever walk past a quiet woman in a market, carrying bags, selling pepper, tying her wrapper tight, don't be too quick to think she's just somebody's wife. She might be the one holding 5 families together. She might be the chair lady behind 100 homes. She might be, like Bisi, the madam behind the curtain. They thought she wore lace. But underneath, she wore strength, wrapped in silence. And when the curtain finally lifted, the world saw not just a woman, but a whole movement standing on 2 feet.